Okay, ladies and germs, today we are doing Pixel 6 Pro versus Canon R6. Why? Because I can. That's why. And why? Because they both have a 6 in them. So let's go see if the video and photos are comparable. 3, 2, 1. Now, some of the differences between an R6 and a Pixel 6 Pro is the 6 Pro is a genius at computational photography, where the R6 I think is just that raw photography power and raw photography options. So one's just built for auto mode, one's just fully built for manual mode, and you'll see those differences here today. I'm just going to duck around the park and take a few quick photos of some things and just put some comparisons up. Some of them I won't tell you which one is which, some I will, and then you'll see that it's very close. It's a very close battle in some areas. Alright, so I just did some landscape photography with both of these cameras. Now it's very hazy out there. This is Mary Cancross Park in Mullaney. Very hazy out off the view, but you can see the Glasshouse Mountains. And looking at both the screens of the phone and the camera, it's very hard to pick a winner just on those small screens. We'll go back in a minute and check out all these photos on the big screen, but for the most part throughout today, these photos all look very comparable on small screens. Now you might think that the Pixel 6 Pro is going to do better on the big screen because it's got 50 megapixels or whatever the fuck it's carrying, but it's not always the case, and I do have faith that the Canon R6 will produce better, more realistic photos than the Pixel 6 Pro once I get on the big computer. And I'll zoom in, I'll do all that pixel peeping, all that sort of shit. We'll have a look in a minute, but for now, just have a look at all these photos throughout the day and the video, and you sort of start to make an opinion depending on your own personal choice. And you also have C-Log or Canon Log on the R6 as of recently. So you've got a lot more video options, a lot better quality. I mean, it just looks fantastic on the R6. On the Pixel it looks good, especially that 4K 60, but you have that massive overheating problem where in Australia on about a 28 degree day, it's overheating after 4 seconds of video. Like the R6 used to overheat when it was first released, and it was a lot better than the Pixel 6 Pro, so I think it's important to realize that even though Google might tout this as, you know, a really good camera, it's shit for video. It really is shit for video. So please consider that if you are, you know, comparing this camera and this phone, but also if you're comparing the Pixel 6 Pro to other phones. That overheating is a problem. So right now I'm filming on 1080p 25 frames per second because I can, and I can film in low light. It's a little bit better. I mean, look, it's now 6 p.m. It's cloudy. There's rainforest behind me, and you're still getting a pretty decent image out of the Canon R6. I fucking love it, mate. I just fucking love it, I do. Pixel 6 Pro. 4K 60, low light. 6 p.m, cloudy, dark, rainforest behind me. You be the judge which one you think looks better. I think as we pixel peep, as we edit the image, as we play with the footage, it becomes more and more apparent that the R6 is well ahead when it comes to video. But I think it's important to realize how good these smartphones are for photography in auto mode. They really do take amazing photos, point and shoot. Remember the old point and shoot camera? You just put in a memory card, charge the battery, point and shoot. And that's what phones are these days. They're just freaking amazing at it. But for the R6 and cameras like that, the R5, the R5C, for photography, these things are still way ahead. It's for that manual mode, manipulating your image yourself, doing all that photography that is hard to do, where you have to learn it as a craft. That comes from using your mirrorless cameras or your DSLRs or your smartphone in manual mode. And it's important to realize that photography is an art, and pointing and shoot with your phone gets a great image but doesn't actually teach you much about photography in terms of manual shooting and adjusting your settings to get the best image. You can still get a great composition, but not always the best outcome. Now, there is a twist to this video, and I won't let you in on it until I get to the end, but just keep looking at the photos and tell me in the comments down below which ones you think are better, Canon or Pixel. You tell me, and then at the end, I'll give you my surprise. For a lot of people, just taking a Snapchat photo or an Instagram quick pic of a sunset or something of your children to share on Facebook, you really can't complain with the quality, especially in this auto mode on the Pixel 6 Pro. It just takes an amazing photo 90% of the time. And then you have the Canon R6, which is the manual photography masterpiece, if you like. It is designed for the photographer, the semi-professional or the really full-on enthusiast photographer who loves playing in manual mode and being as creative as they can be to create their own little masterpiece. And I think manual photography is an art form and one that needs to be mastered. And using manual mode on these high-end cameras or mid-range cameras is really a steep learning curve, but the results can be absolutely mind-blowing. And I think as I look through these photos here, I'm really starting to see some major differences in the pictures. Now, one of the things I noticed here while I was out filming was that the Pixel 6 Pro photos looked so much sharper, but once I got them back into the studio, I definitely started to see huge differences in the quality, especially in the sharpness and in the detail. And I think you can see here, and you'll agree with me, that the Pixel 6 Pro photos look very digital, and you can definitely see that it's digital sharpening. And for me, there is no real comparison here. Again, like I said, when you share these photos on Facebook or Snapchat or whatever it is that's your platform, you're not looking for the detail, you're looking for the funny moment or the funny short video and you're sharing it. And that's all you need it for, and that's fine. But definitely if you're looking for a photo that you can edit and blow up and share online, and not just share but potentially even sell, or maybe doing a wedding or some sort of photography where these photos are going to be looked at by a lot of people and not just on small displays, then the Canon R6 takes way better photos in terms of the quality of the image. And that's what's important here for photographers. We want that quality looking image. You definitely get that quality looking image on the Pixel 6 Pro, but when you compare it to the Canon R6, mind-blowing, miles apart. Also, the Pixel 6 Pro offers a lot more saturation straight out of the camera. That auto mode, Pixel 6 Pro, overly saturated, but not in a bad way. It's just more than what you're actually seeing with your eyes. So if you see something on the street that's blue on your Pixel 6 Pro, it's going to be a fair bit bluer than what you actually saw in real life. Now you can actually achieve that as well with the Canon R6, but it's a manual decision that you're making. It's a creative decision. You might not want it to be that blue. You might want it to be less blue, but you don't really get a choice with the Pixel 6 Pro. You're just getting what the camera gives you. Like I said, this computational photography is amazing, but it removes your choice. I mean, you have a full frame sensor here on the Canon R6 versus the Pixel 6 Pro sensor, which is a lot smaller. It might have 50 megapixels, but they're a lot smaller and there's a lot less information coming in. Whereas on the Canon R6, you got a really big sensor, so therefore your megapixels are bigger and more light, more detail is coming in. This also gives you the ability to get more blurry out of focus backgrounds. So Pixel 6 Pro gives you portrait mode, which gives you this fake blurry background and can sometimes get a bit smudgy around the edges of your subject. Where with the Canon R6 or any mirrorless or DSLR camera, you're going to get a real fall off into the blurry background, and it's not going to be computational. You can determine how full on that blurry background is, or that bokeh. You can actually be creative and decide. Don't get me wrong, the Pixel 6 Pro offers some really cool gimmicks, and one of them is motion photo. And I did play around today with motion photo on the R6 and on the Pixel 6 Pro. So how did I do it on the Pixel 6 Pro? I just press a button that says motion photo, point it at my subject and press the shutter button. Very easy, very automatic, and very computational. And the end result most of the time doesn't look too bad. However, with the Canon R6, you actually lower your shutter down really low and you create that look yourself. Here's some images from the night where I was just playing around with the Canon R6, getting some of that motion blur, slowing my shutter right down, also using my camera handheld, so the stabilization was amazing to be able to get these shots. And it was a lot more fun. I was out for like 12 hours on this day taking photos and videos. And the most enjoyable part of my day was when I went, that's it, comparison's over, I'm just going to do photography for me. And I was out doing some motion photos at night, busy intersection, panning and getting some slow shutter photos with the Canon R6. It was the best part of my day, and I think I got some of the best photos of the day during that period. But motion photo on both of them is amazing. The other one that the Pixel 6 Pro offers is object removal. I used it in my Pixel 6 Pro review and I haven't used it since. So it's not really a feature. It's not really something I use because I take a photo, and when I take a photo, I'm choosing to take that photo. It's not like I'm taking a photo by accident and then going, oh, I wish that cup wasn't in the photo, or I wish that tree wasn't in the photo, or that person. Now on the Pixel 6 Pro, you're shooting at f1.8 or something amazing like that, but it's very hard to get an out of focus background. Whereas with the Canon, I was shooting at f4 minimum and getting way more out of focus backgrounds and more stylistic looking photos. That's something to keep in consideration. But then it's also interesting, like as a landscape photographer, you can take a photo of something with the Pixel 6 Pro and most things in that image are going to be in focus, whether they're 10 kilometers apart or not. So that is certainly something to consider with the Pixel 6 Pro for these landscape photos or wide angle. You can get a lot in focus, especially if you're trying to show off a nice landscape photo. But again, you can achieve that with the Canon as well. It's just easier with such a small sensor to get everything in focus. And because of that, zooming in gives you really disgusting looking photos on smartphones. And that's why they're sort of like gimmicky still. I mean, you get your wide angle lens or your standard range lens on your phones and it's okay, it does a good job. But when you zoom in, it starts to look really, really bad. And I know there's a lot of tech reviewers out there that, they talk like it's amazing, but I'm telling you, it's garbage. Especially if you're walking around with your phone in your pocket, you don't have a tripod, it's really hard to get a zoomed in photo that is not looking like garbage. Whereas with these cameras like Canon and Fuji and Nikon, you can zoom in and get a really nice clear image no matter what. And if you're using a larger camera like a DSLR or mirrorless camera, you're more inclined to have a tripod with you so you will be able to get better images. So in terms of the quality of the photo, for me on the Canon you have better detail, you have better bokeh, the pictures are sharper, the pictures are more true to life, the creativity is in bucket loads, you can just totally choose how to manipulate the photo to suit you. This is before you even edit it. But then on the Pixel 6, it does it all for you. It's like taking the photo and editing it in Lightroom in 3 seconds. And you've got this amazing looking photo. But you don't get any choice. Now the Canon R6 had a reputation for overheating and the Pixel 6 Pro doesn't, probably because it's been reviewed by 1 million Americans who live in freezing cold weather. And I can tell you, the Pixel 6 Pro overheats on me all the time. Out in Australia, in summer, you take this thing out on a hot day, it's going to overheat within 10 to 20 seconds of taking video. It's garbage. The Canon R6 has overheated on me once in 6 months of use, and that one time it didn't actually completely overheat. I noticed it was overheating and turned it off for 20 minutes before I finished my shoot. So there's some problems there with the Pixel 6 Pro that I haven't heard many people talk about. Now the Canon R6 and the Pixel 6 Pro are two very different tools. And I said earlier that there was a twist to this video, and there is. My twist is, I took all these in manual mode on the Canon R6, and then I went back to my tool shed and I edited the photos before making this video. Because I wanted to highlight that the photography is an art, and it's not just about taking photos in automatic mode and sharing them on Snapchat. If you're using a mirrorless or a DSLR camera, you're going to really enjoy the process of taking your photos in manual mode, creating the image you want to create, and then playing around with it in Lightroom to get the best looking result. That is a very different process to using a smartphone. This smartphone can still give you amazing images, but it is all automatic and you get zero choice. But it is like you press that button and within 3 seconds, you've got a fully edited photo ready to share with no choice. So I think they're very different for each person. For me, it's the Canon R6. I'll walk around with a S22 or a Pixel 6 Pro or an iPhone in my pocket, but I will always have my camera with me for photography. I don't go out to film B-roll for my videos with my Pixel 6 Pro. I go out with my Canon R6 and I have a monitor and a tripod and a video head and all sorts of little tools to get the best images I can. Whereas with the phone, I would use it if I had no choice, but I definitely get better images with my mirrorless camera. I can't wait to hear all your comments about this. I really can't. I mean, some people get so offended that I would say the Pixel 6 Pro is automatic and takes away your creativity. And some people will get so offended that I say the R6 is the best one out of the two. I love it. Everyone just gets so worked up over this stuff. But at the end of the day, you use what's in your pocket. For me, I've normally always got my R6 on me or within arm's reach of me. So I use the Canon R6. And I have the Pixel 6 Pro in my pocket as well at the same time. But I still use the Canon. Now I think you will agree that the Canon photos definitely look better. Take from that what you want. It doesn't really matter because this is my decision, my choices. Hopefully this video can help you make a choice about which one's best for you and your situation. Like if you're planning on buying an R6, but you rarely do any photography, then maybe don't get the R6. Maybe just stick with the Pixel or the iPhone or the Samsung. That is the end of my video, ladies and germs. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you in the next one. Check out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, folks, don't forget links down below if you do want to pick up any of these cameras or these accessories you see in this video.